Hello, I'm Michaela, and this is my review of Eve of Man by Giovanna and Tom Fletcher. In this book, Eve is the first female born in 50 years, and when she turns 16, she has to choose between love and the survival of the human race. I loved the story, and the concept of it caught my attention straight away. I enjoyed the pacing of it as well. It wasn't too fast or too slow, I don't think, in any way. And I think it was quite good in that respect because it is part of a trilogy. So I think the pacing was good. So it's going to keep going throughout the series. We're always going to learn more. So it can take its time a little bit. So it doesn't have to rush through things too much. I've always found it quite easy to read and to get into. And I always wanted more, and I didn't want to put it down every time that I had to. I don't have much of an opinion on the dialogue. It worked well enough for the content in the book. It was two 16-year-olds and some elderly people, essentially. But it did push the story along well enough to keep me interested in it, so I can't really complain about it in that regard at all. I also enjoyed the reference in here that Eve had from her parents, and at least a mother, and a mother isn't in this book at all, for good reason, but you'll find that out if you read it. But she has some letters from a mother, and I like that the reference to a mother, which is mama, is also what the author's children call Giovanna, or G in the videos to put online. That's what they call her, and I quite enjoyed that because I do watch the vlogs online, and I just thought it was quite cute that they put a little bit of fact in there and something that's true in there with the book as well. I enjoyed both parts of the book. So it was in two parts. It was Eve's point of view and then Bram, like in separate chapters. And in some ways they were relatable, but sometimes it was a little bit unbelievable because obviously of the situations and things. But I think with some teenagers who may read this, with Bram, he's relatable in regards to his relationship with his father. He doesn't have a good one at all. It's just broken down and it's not great at all. Eve feels trapped and she's very angry with the system that she's in. She's starting to figure things out. She's getting very annoyed. She just wants to be out and she doesn't want to be there anymore, but she can't get out. And I also think Eve is like Triss in Divergent, in the fact that she's the only one really of her kind. She's the only one like who she is. And although it's totally different concepts in books and things, I think that's one similarity that it has with the Divergent series. I sometimes think that the decisions that them both made in this book were rather irrational, because the teenagers that think they're in love and all that fun stuff. But in some ways, it did help push the plot along. It did help the story along quite a bit. So in that regard, it's quite good that they made quite rash decisions and things. And it also helped both of the characters get information that they needed. So it's things that you'd be intrigued by or interested in. For example, Bram knew what happened to a lot of the women that had died, and they were all being kept to one side. But I don't think Eve knew that at all. I don't think she knew any of what was going on in the place that she lived at, or below her at all in the tower. Where he knew a little bit about certain things, she knew nothing. I liked some of the mothers in this book and felt quite bad for some of them sometimes because one of them did die in the book and it wasn't really a nice way for it to happen, and I felt bad for Eve in that regard, having to see her favourite mother die. And I call them mothers because they're the ones who collectively cared for Eve over the 16-year period, and they had different names like Mother something or Mother. It wasn't just Mother. I disliked Vivian quite a lot in this book. I thought Bram's father was an asshole too, but Vivian specifically was very heartless in regards to Eve. Where Vivian is in charge of things to do with Eve, Bram's father is in charge of everything else. Well, not everything else, but in regards to some of the men, or most of the men, that are also in the same building as what Eve is in. I was very interested in Holly, who was Eve's friend, but she was controlled separately. And she wasn't a real person, but she was controlled by 3 different people, I think, Bram being one of them. And Eve knew the difference between all of them just simply by their eyes, because Holly always looked exactly the same, but the eyes were always a different colour. And she always knew Bram, which I think over the course of a few months in the book, she slowly recognised who he was and distinctively would reference him when he was there, and talk to him, and I think over time got to know him a little bit over that time. And I enjoyed seeing Eve, Bram, and sometimes using Holly as well to put things into disarray in the book, pulling systems down a little bit, making the people on top panic and a little bit frantic sometimes. On Goodreads, I gave this 4 stars, sorry, and I can recommend it to all young adult readers who are interested in like dystopian stuff, and all that those kind of reads. And yeah, I just recommend it very highly, and I hope you've enjoyed this video today, and thanks for watching.